All right. So today's session is based on the REST API as per we discussed yesterday. This is the last cleanup component that we use where we perform some cleanup activities, and also like in case of you testing also, that time also we use the REST API. Okay. Now REST API URL, I believe I shared it yesterday itself. Like how do we create a URL for REST API? Because once you install the IBM BPM, if you see here, I'll just show you one thing. So this is how I start the server every day. Okay, so this is called the process manager quick start, and you see here it says stop the process center deployment environment. Initially, whenever I start the server every day in the morning, it says start the process center deployment environment. And whenever I click on it, and whenever the server starts after starting everything, then all these links, all these URLs you see, VAS admin console, process admin console, business performance admin console, process center, process portal, all these URLs, they get enabled. But your REST API will never appear here. Okay, so it's a testing tool. So you need to remember the URL and you can use it whenever it is necessary. Okay, so right now I'm inside the REST API tester. And if you see on the left hand side, there is something called select API call. And in this select API call, there are so many options, but we need to use only one over here. Okay. Other than this, I mean, there are a lot of things over here which are also related to IID, integration designer. Okay. So we don't have to use that. We will use only BPM APIs in case if I need to test anything from here. And you see the first one says business process manager REST APIs. Uh, and if you're using BAW, now this is 8.6. If you're using BAW, this will, the name is different. The name says IBM business process manager REST APIs. So just the matter of one word. Otherwise, if you expand this, everything is the same. So many APIs are there. I just expanded this. There are process APIs, service APIs, task API. Like this, you have so many APIs. All these APIs are not required. We need only few among this. So we are going to use some of them from the process API, few from the service API, few from the task API. Okay. So we'll see one by one. We'll start with the process API. One of the most important things is process API, even for your cleanup. Say, for example, yesterday I was giving an example where an instance failed and we fixed the issue and we retried the instance from the process inspector. Right now, there are cases, there are scenarios where you will see that even if you have fixed the issue and you have deployed it to say some environment, even if you're trying to retry it from the inspector, the instance will never be active, although the issue has been fixed. So in those kind of scenarios, we use process API. So there are few of the APIs which are there in the process API. We use them to retry the instance. Okay, so we'll see one by one. So let me expand this process API. Here, again, you will see a lot of APIs are there. Again, not everything is required. So we'll see only those which are required for our debugging and cleanup thing for the production. One of the most important here is current state. Okay, current state means, say I have triggered one process, say leave application process, and say right now the token is active on top of the manager activity. So by this, what we mean the employee activity is already completed and the manager activity is right now triggered. Right now, generally we are doing everything, whatever sessions we have done till now, we have done everything from the development environment. And whenever I was triggering the process, you guys were able to see where the token is, right? Because the diagram was also visible on the left hand side. So if I go back to my designer, you see, I triggered one instance over here, and you guys can see this diagram and you guys can understand, okay, so which means that employee task is active right now because this token is on top of it. But in case of an environment like a testing environment like QA or UAT, or even for the production environment, you will never see this diagram, right? I will not be able to understand where the token is, what is the token number. You see the token number is 6 over here, right? And it is right now sitting on the employee tasks. So this diagram will never be visible to you for the other environments. So we have an API called current state API. Yes, it will not show me the diagram, but it will show me like which task is active right now, where the token is sitting right now on which activity, what is the token number, everything will be visible to me with the help if I use this current state API. Okay. For this, we just need to provide the instance ID over here. You see, here you have few parameters are there, which we need to fill up. The first parameter says process instance ID. So here, if I put the instance ID and if I click on execute, you see there is a button right below, which is disabled at the moment. Why it is disabled? Because I haven't filled up these parameters. So once I fill up this parameter, and then only this button will be enabled. Now in these three parameters, guys, only the first parameter is mandatory. The other two parameters is not required. What are those parameters we'll discuss definitely. But the first parameter is where you need to put the instance ID. So here you see, I triggered one process, this process leave application process. And today morning, I did some change. I added a script before this employee task. And in this script, what I'm doing, I am just populating the employee ID with the username. Whoever logs in, whoever tries to trigger this process, that person's username will be mapped where to the employee ID of this employee information. Okay. So this instance, if you see the instance ID, it's 256, right? So what I'll do, I'm going to put this instance ID in the REST API and see whether whatever I'm seeing here, is it matching through whatever is being returned by the REST API tester. Okay. So we'll go back here and we'll put the instance ID 256. And then here you have a lot of things. You see here parts, there is all diagram, header, data, execution tree. So many of the things are there. We just need to enable this execution tree. This execution tree will give me which are the tasks which are active right now, which of them have been completed, what is the token ID which is sitting on the top of the active task, and which is the next task, what is the data. If you see, if I enable this data also, it will also show me whatever runtime data that has been populated. So employee information, if I populate already, then employee information business object will be displayed over here. It will show me which are the data that has been populated already. Okay. So I'll click on execute call and I can see some information came on the right hand side. Before we go and see what information came, let us go to the top. And if you see here, there is something called status 200. Okay. Whenever you are executing any REST call, any REST API call, be it this current state, and again, we are going to go through some other APIs also. Whenever you are triggering an API, if you get a response with 200 OK, which means that the call is successful. Okay. If you don't get 200 OK, if you're getting 404 or 400, then which means there is some issue with the call. Okay. So whenever you get 200 OK in response to any REST API calls, which means your call is successful. Okay. Now, if I scroll down, Then I'm going to see a lot of information. I can see the data. You guys can see here data, and I see here employee information. In this employee information, I see employee ID has been populated over here with Rahul, right? Apart from that, I don't see anything. Why I don't see anything? Because employee task has just been triggered. I haven't yet claimed the employee task. I have not filled up in details over there. Okay. That's the reason employee information is right now only has employee ID data. Apart from this, everything is none. If I scroll down, here you see in a diagrammatic format of the employee information where you see only employee ID is there. If I scroll down more, I can see the execution tree. In this execution tree, what I can see is the name of the process, right? And what else I can see? Again, I can see employee information. What else I can see? Now I can see which task is active right now. Employee task is active. What is the important thing over here? Token ID. I can see the token ID is also there. Whenever you are running this current state, wherever you see token ID is being displayed, which means that task has been triggered. Say here is displays manager task. Say your manager task is already completed. Or say this is employee task. Say employee task is already completed. You will not see the token ID with the employee task. You will see it with the manager task. Because right now the manager task is active and not the employee task. For this scenario again, for those who are having doubts with token ID, it is showing here token ID for employee task because right now the employee task has been triggered and the token ID 6 is waiting on top of it. Then you see created task IDs. So this is the task ID of the employee task that is also being displayed. Okay. So like this, you can see your execution tree. In case of complex process, you guys can understand where there are multiple activities. So your execution tree can become very big, right? So you have to scroll down slowly and see where the token is. Usually what we do in our scenario where we also have some complex processes in our project. So generally if the execution tree is huge, what we do here, control F, and we search for token. Wherever it shows me token ID is there, like right now it is highlighting over here, which means this task is active at the moment. And then if we need to do some other activities like moving the token backwards or forward, that also we can do. Just we need to get the token ID from here. Okay. So current state will exactly give you the current state of your instance ID, whichever instance ID you put over here. And accordingly you can see which task is active, what are the runtime data that are already populated, and if there is any failure, then that failure also can be handled from here. Okay, we'll discuss about that, we'll come to that. All right, now coming back to this parameters, like I said you, these two parameters are optional. So first one says task limit. So say you have, again, say you have a complex process where there are say 10 user activities are there in the process. So if you want to see the execution tree, and if you want to see say only the first 5 tasks, what is the execution state of the first 5 tasks? So in that case I can put here 5. It will not show me all the 10, it will show me only the 5 user activities, the state of the 5 user activities over here. Okay. Task offset, what it says in specifies the index of the first task instance to be returned from the result set. So here if I put here 1, it will show me the result set only from the first task. Okay, say I have employee task, I have manager task, and I have senior manager task, and all these things are there. If I put here 1, it will show me only the details of the first task. That's the reason We don't put anything over here because generally for a developer, we want to see everything, the entire execution tree. So we put only the instance ID over here, and coming to the parts, we only enable the execution tree. If you want to see the data, you can enable it. If you want to see everything, then you can enable all. It will show you everything over here, whatever is there. Okay. So this is about the current state of an instance. Okay. Very important. And yes, there are few things, guys, which are important, which are not being displayed over here, but I will show you. I want to click on all and I'll execute this call once again. Okay. So here, few of the things are important, and these things we will not get from anywhere else. Okay. For example, if you see here, there is something called process app ID. See here something called process app ID. Now, guys, every process app, whenever you're creating a process application, there is a unique identifier which gets created for that process app. If someday someone asks you that, hey, this is a process app you created, Mercedes or something like that, can you give me the process app ID? Unfortunately, you will not get the process app ID from anywhere except REST API. You have to come to the REST API, you have to call this current state API, and you can get the process app ID from here. What else? Snapshot ID, another important thing. This also we will not get anywhere except for this current state API call in this REST API. Branch ID. What is branch ID? Snapshot we understood. Process app we understood. What is branch? Branch is nothing but track. Okay. It tells you which track it belongs. So here you see the branch name. It says main. Yesterday we discussed the default track of a process app is the main track. That is where we do the development. But tomorrow, if some bug comes, I can create a track from the snapshot which has been deployed already, and there I can fix the code and I can deploy it back where? Back to the testing environment or production environment, wherever I need to deploy. So your branch or track also has a branch ID, which is again not visible anywhere except for this current state API. Okay. So these things are important. In case if tomorrow if I have to get all these details for something, then definitely I can come here, I can call the current state. I just need to put an instance ID over here. It will give me the details of this instance. We are good.
Yes, Rahul.
Yes, Rahul.
Yes, Rahul.
Yes, Rahul. Yes, Rahul.
Yes, Rahul.
Okay. Now, guys, you see here very what to say? These are the things, these are familiar things, right? Update, due date. I said you guys, due date can be updated through the code. Due date can be modified from the inspector. Yesterday we saw. Again, due date can also be modified from the REST API. Yeah. So modifying a due date through the REST API is something we never do. I mean, something we do at the end. If I don't have anything, if I don't have inspector access and anything, then only we can come to the REST API and we can update the due date. So here you have to put the instance ID and just need to put the due date. So there is a specific format of this due date, which you can see year, then months, and then you have the day. So it's a specific format, ISO 8601 format, which needs to be followed. And in this format, you can update the due date for any instance. Okay. Ideally, we don't never, people will never say you, or anyone will never say you that update the due date. But in case if you have to, then always go for your inspector, process inspector. And then if you don't, if you are not able to change the due date from there, then you can come down here to the REST API, and from here you can update the new due date. Okay. Simple things. Whatever we have done till now through the other consoles, the same thing can be done from here. Yes, there are a lot of features are also there which are not there available in any of the consoles, which are available only in the REST API. We are discussing them also today. So update due date is one. Evaluate JavaScript. So for example, I have an instance ID, but I want to implement some JavaScript expression. Say for example, I want to implement some kind of code on top of an instance that I can put over here. If you ask me, have you ever done this thing? I will tell you, no, I've never done, honestly. This kind of scenarios have never come to me till now, evaluating some JavaScript expression. So I'm not really sure what exactly I need to put over here and execute. These things will not come, you will never come across for even for any cleanup activity also. Okay, but yes, just understand what exactly these things do. You can evaluate a JavaScript over here. I can put a JavaScript expression. Say for example, I want to get the subject of a specific task, or for example, I want to say mm, say I want to execute something which will give me how many tasks have been completed till now and how many are active. That can be done using some JavaScript expression. That JavaScript expression, I can put it over here, and I can, if I execute, then it will give me that result set. Okay, something like that can be done over here. Update due date, we know. Suspend process, it is nothing but the way we suspend an instance. We can suspend it through the inspector. We have seen, right? I believe we have seen it already. Just a moment. Just a moment. Process admin console. So here we have the option suspend, right? The same thing we are doing it from the REST API. So 256 is the instance. Say I want to suspend this instance, I can come back to the REST API 256, and if I click on execute call, then you see what I get. First, always check the response at the top. It says status 200 okay, which means then we can go down and we can see what exactly has happened. You see what has happened? The state has been changed to suspended. Now, if I go back to my inspector, if I refresh this, I don't see it as an active, right? It says suspended, right? 256 is now suspended. Okay. So simple things, these things can be done or should be done from the inspector only. If you're inspector, if you don't have an access, then only you come here and you can use this techniques. Resume process, whatever has been suspended, if you want to resume it once again, then you can again resume this process. You can just need to put the instance ID again 256. If I click on execute call, I got 200 okay, which means once again this instance should be active. I go back to my inspector, I click on refresh. Now I don't see anything in suspended. I should be seeing it instead active. Yes, 256 is once again active. Retry process. Yesterday, guys, I said you that through the inspector, if I'm not able to retry, then can I retry it from some other console? The answer is yes. Through the REST API, I can definitely retry an instance. You just need to put the instance ID over here and execute call. Automatically, whatever we did in the inspector, same thing will be done here. The failed instance will once again be retried and the status will be changed from failed to active. Even if it doesn't work, even if this retry also doesn't work, there is still one more option, and it is available only in the REST API. We will be discussing that. Okay, so like this, there are other things. So not everything we follow. We have terminate process. You can terminate some instance from here. You just put the instance ID. You can delete an instance from here, right? A lot of other things are also there. Say for example, this is a bulk operation. Okay, process bulk operation. Now I have set 10 instances. Now at a time, in one call, I want to suspend all the 10 instances. You just need to put the instance ID in comma separated format. Here you have the action called suspend. Then you can click on execute. All those 10 instances will be suspended at one go. There are other actions also, guys. Resume, retry. It's a good thing. Say there are 15 instances which has failed. I, as a developer, I have fixed the issue. I have deployed this to, say, QA environment. Now I want to retry all those 10 instances at one go, right? It becomes easier for me as a developer, right? I can just put those instance IDs over here in a comma separated way, and I can execute the call. Automatically, those 10 instances will be retried. These features are not there in the inspector. That's the reason we use REST API in case if there are multiple failures, multiple instances have failed. I want to retry them at one go. Then definitely I have to use the REST API. Okay. Instance error details. I want to get the error details of an instance or multiple instances. Then definitely I can use this. Run ad hoc event. If I want to say there is a specific activity and that activity I want to trigger once again in the process, I can use this run ad hoc event. Delete token. Whatever token is active right now, I want to delete that token. We don't generally do this, to be very honest, delete token. But in case if you have to delete a token, then definitely you can use this delete token technique from here, and you can delete some token. Simple. You just need to put the instance ID and the token ID. How do we get the token ID? We have the current state, guys. Remember, from the current state we get the token ID, and that token ID you can put it over here. You can put the instance ID also, and accordingly you can use it. Then we have move token. Very important. This is the thing which I wanted to show in the first go. Move token, guys, is one of the most important cleanup activity that we perform in production. Okay. I was giving an example like say an instance has failed. Now we deployed the fix to that environment, and then we went to the process inspector. We tried to retry that instance from there, but it didn't work. Then we came to the REST API. We again tried this retry process API call, which we just now saw, but that also did not work. Then we have something called move token. Now, what is move token? Let me show you first from the diagram. Now, say there was some issue with the employee task, and that's the reason the entire instance failed. Now I have fixed that issue. I try to retry it, but somehow the retry is not working. So what we generally do, we move the token backward once again. And what will happen? Whenever I move the token backward over here, then definitely it will execute this code, and once again it will try to move forward. It has been found doing this, the issue gets fixed. Okay. Whenever you deploy the fix, what happens? It still tries to take the old state, which is incorrect. That's the reason we refresh this by moving the token backward, and automatically it will again move forward. That time it will take the new state, that is the new fix which I have deployed to that environment. Okay. So this is one of the most important way, or this is one of the most common way that we follow, and this is being followed for quite a long time. I mean, since IBM BPM was introduced, move token and all these API calls were there from the beginning only. And in case of some kind of typical issues come, say for example some database call has failed, say maybe we are trying to call some external application to get some details, and somehow that external application was not returning a correct response. And when they came up and said that, hey, our this application is working now, please go and retry your instance. And we went ahead in the inspector and tried to retry it, but it failed. Then what we did move token, we moved backward, and once again we refreshed it. So it, and suddenly you can see that the call once again is good. The call is successful, and we get a proper response from them, and then only we move forward. Now the thing is, even at times, just to refresh this instance, we don't move the token backward. We move the token again on top of it. Say we have the token number 6 and there is something, some ID for this employee task, right? We also have an ID for the script task. This IDs, we call it as the target IDs. Okay. And this target IDs you will get only from the REST API. Okay. Target IDs means basically whenever you are adding any component in the process, say you are adding a script or you are adding some system activity or you are adding a user activity or you are adding a linked process, whichever activities you add, each activity will again have some unique identifier. Okay. Now that unique identifier I can get only from the REST API. And you know what is the name of the unique identifier? We just missed to discuss that. We'll go back once again. That is called the target ID. Okay. And which is the call that we make to get those details? Again, the same call, current state. I will show you quickly. Here we have the current state. I will put the instance ID once again, 256. Here guys, you see there is something we call as the flow object ID. This flow object ID is nothing but the target ID. Why I'm using this term target ID, you will come to know very soon. So here is the flow object ID, which we consider as the unique identifier of which task? Employee task. Okay. If you have tasks further, say it is right now showing the execution tree of only active tasks. Tomorrow, whenever I complete this employee task, whenever it will move forward to the manager task, it will also show me the flow object ID of the manager task. Okay, so this way it happens. Now, click on all. Yeah, now you can see guys, I clicked on all. Now it is also showing me manager task. For the manager task also, what I can see, yes, I don't see any target ID right now for the manager task because the manager task is still not active. Whenever the manager task becomes active, whenever the token moves forward, then only I will get the object ID or the target ID of the manager task. All right, now what we will do, I will try to fail an instance and using the move token technique, I am going to retry it. Okay, so first let's go back to our designer. So here I cannot move the token backward here. The reason is this is a script and script will never create an it will never have an object ID which will be displayed in the REST API. So what we'll do, we'll try to move the token on again back to this employee task. Okay, just to refresh it once again so that it gets the exactly the current or the latest state of my activity. So first I will go inside this employee task. Again, whatever we did before. So let me add something like this. Let me save it. And if I try to run this process now, I get an instance ID 257. I have an employee task. So if I go and claim this employee task will fail. So my instance has also failed now. I can see it has failed. Now 257, let me go to the REST API and let me get the current state. I don't need all, I just need the execution tree. So what I can see here, I should be able to see some token ID. Yes, I can see the token ID. Token ID is 6 because it is waiting at top of the employee task. And here we have the flow object ID, which is important for me. Now I will go to move token API. What does this move token API will ask for? It will ask for three important things: instance ID, token ID, and target step ID. At which step you want to move the token. Instance ID, I already have 257. Token ID, I can see token ID 6. So I just need to put token ID 6. And what else we need? We need the flow object ID, which is also called the target step ID. Just copy this and paste it over here. Wait, will not execute the call because I have not resolved the issue till now, right? So I'll go back to the employee task, remove this thing, save it. Now I can go back to the REST API and execute this call. What I get? 200. Okay. Now I should go back to my inspector. 257. It is showing me failed. Now, if I click on retry from here, it should work. The thing is that this retry from here will work because of this issue. This issue can be retried from here. But in case of some external calls, if in case of say some UCA was about to pass a message, but somehow the message was not being passed, or maybe it became late, right? And somehow, since we did not get the response, maybe some activity failed because of that, because it was waiting for some time. Remember, we have some timer and everything. So say I've enabled some timer and it was waiting for some response from some other process, but it failed. So what will happen in that, in those kind of scenarios, we can use this move token. Whenever you do a move token from here directly, it will not change the state to active. You have to once again go to the inspector and refresh the instance or retry the instance. That time you will see automatically the instance will become active. Okay, so move token is very important. uh, Generally you will see in production this kind of cleanup activities will come. I have created one utility for my project. If we have time, I'll show you, where you don't have to come to this REST API. I have created one service flow, and that service flow, if you put some details over there, automatically that service flow will move the token backward or forward. Okay, so if you have some time at the end, I'll show you this service. So you can also create these utilities at your end. Creating utilities is very important, guys. Okay, what is utility? Utility is something, say, yesterday we saw a few things, right? Like I was assigning a task to some user from the inspector, and even in the REST API also, I'll show you, there is also a way where you can assign a task to someone else, right? Now, why do we need to be dependent on this REST API and this inspector? Instead of using this, I can create a service at my own, and that service will work as a utility where I can assign any task to any user. Okay, these are called the BPM utilities, which you as a developer can create, and definitely that will help your team. Okay, so instead of going to the REST API, instead of going to the inspector, directly you can call that service, and you can easily, you can whatever you want to perform, those things you can perform through your service, right? Now a question can come into your mind that, Rahul, I created one service flow. Say the service flow will assign a task to some user. I can call that service in the development environment. How do we call that service? Whenever I am deploying that service flow to, say, production environment, right? Obviously, we can't call it, right? Because we don't have an authoring environment. We don't have a process designer for the testing environment and for the production environment. That's the reason we have another API called service API, where you can call any service from the REST API. It says start service. Through this, I can call a service. Generally, this kind of utilities we create it through an AJAX service. And an AJAX service can be called easily from the REST API. Okay. I don't remember. I believe I said you guys when we were discussing about the AJAX service, that an AJAX service is a naturally exposed service. I don't have to configure anything. Say today, if Java team wants to tell that, hey, we want to trigger your BPM process, So you can provide some kind of service URL to us through which we can call and we can trigger the BPM process, right? One of the feature or one of the component that we can use in BPM is called the AJAX service. And AJAX service, I believe we discussed this thing before. Let me open a notepad. So in an AJAX service, guys, say I create an AJAX service called task assignment. So this service will try to assign a task to some user. We need to provide the task ID as an input, and whenever we put the task ID as an input, now this service it has some code which will try to assign this task to some particular user. Now how can I call this from the REST API? From the REST API, this AJAX service can be called using this URL. Okay, this is the format or this is the URL. We have to get the acronym of the process app where this AJAX service is, followed by @ and then the AJAX service name. So say this task assignment service is placed in say leave application process, and say it has an acronym say LA, then it will LA @ task assignment. So tomorrow, if you are collaborating with some Java team or with some external team, and they are saying you that, hey, I want to call your AJAX service, please provide the endpoint URL, then this is the URL which you need to provide them. Okay, so process app acronym @ of AJAX service name. This kind of things will be there a lot in case if you're working in headless projects. If you're working in a complete end-to-end BPM project, this kind of calls will not be there that much, but definitely in a headless project, this kind of things will definitely be there. Okay, all right. Now once again I move back to the start service. Let me see if I have any AJAX service over here. Wait. Sorry. AJAX service flow. No, I don't have. Let us create one. Okay, we'll try to trigger a BPD from the REST API today through an AJAX service. Okay, let's see how to do it. So quickly I will need some people to help me out. So first I will be creating a service flow trigger leave application. Oops. And I will get some variables here. So EMP location. All the services were actually there. I remember we created, but unfortunately I had to once again reinstall this IBM BPM and everything is lost. So employee location will have some data here. I will just add some value. So you guys are from Bangalore, everyone?
Yes, Rahul.
Yes, Rahul. I'm from Bangalore.
Yes, Rahul.
I'm from Chennai, Rahul.
Okay, so Vishal is from Chennai. Generally every year, so I am based in Pune, so every year I used to travel to Bangalore in December.
Rahul, your voice getting low.
My voice is low or it's breaking?
In low volume. Low, Rahul. A bit lower.
Okay, now it's fine.
Yes, Rahul. Yes, Rahul.
Yes, Rahul.
Yes, Rahul.
Okay. So generally in the December month, I used to travel to Bangalore to meet my friends. But for the last 2 years, I was not able to because of this pandemic. And fortunately, they are also here with me in Kolkata. All right, now application process, variables, employee location. Okay. Now somebody needs to help me out. What do I need to write it over here so that I can trigger the BPD? Okay, wait, let me ask you people. Let me see who can. Okay, Tharun, can you help me out? What exactly I need to write so that I can trigger the process?
Yes, Rahul. We need to get the data. TW dot
W dot
local dot
local dot
employee location
employee location
equal to
equal to
new dot DW dot employee location.
no, no. Employee location is a simple parameter. This kind of answer actually confuses me, like what we learned for so many days. Okay, you can go on mute. Shashank, can you
Yes,
help?
Rahul.
Yes.
New TW dot.
Okay, let me tell the requirement. Okay, the requirement is this service which I am creating, it will trigger a BPD. So in that case, what code I need to write so that it can trigger a BPD? Okay, I go to the next person, Bharadwaj.
Map object, Rahul.
Good, map object. So what I need to write in the map object, guys? Yes, Bharadwaj, you can say me the first statement.
TW dot local dot
TW dot local dot
employee location is equals to map object of
no, wrong. Okay, I'll go to the next person. I'll go to Muthulakshmi.
Yes, Rahul.
What I need to write here?
For the map object you're asking.
Yeah, yes.
Okay. TW dot local dot
TW dot local dot
like object name is equal to
no. I'll go back to someone else. Yes, Sunita.
For map object, Rahul,
Yes.
variable input equal to
It's where input equals to
new TW dot input, new TW dot object dot map.
right. That is what I was trying to hear for so long time. Map.
Okay.
Now I'll go to the next statement with someone else. I'll go with Garapati Chandramouli. Thank you, Sunita.
Thank you, Rahul.
Yeah, now input dot put.
Input dot put. Yes.
Employee location in quotes.
Okay. So the first one What will be the variable? Process variable, right?
Yes.
And this one would be the current.
TW.
Okay. All right. Now you can go on mute. Now I'll go with Srinidhi. What is the next statement?
We can create an instance ID.
Yes. What is the API?
Rahul?
What is the name of the API?
Variable process instance ID.
Now, what is the API that we use to trigger the process?
Start process name.
Right. Start process by name. So how do I write that?
TW dot system
System dot
start process name.
start process by name. So what is the first one? First parameter?
Employee location.
No. First parameter says the name of the process which I want to trigger. Yeah.
Name of the process. Yes,
So within double quotes, I need to provide the name leave application process. Input values here, and it just put the input and check authorization. I can ignore. Okay. So I'll save it. So I hope this is enough to trigger the process, right? Now, obviously, I can enhance this. Yes, Srinidhi, you can go on mute. Thank you.
Okay.
Guys, you need to practice a lot before I go ahead. You need to practice a lot. I believe the practice is not happening. Okay, this is the simplest thing. Start process by name. We covered so many complex things like UCA and all those things. So there are people which I can see regularly, they are not able to answer the questions properly. There are few people, and please do the practice. Even through your BAW trial version, all these things can be done. It is not that you have to use a licensed product. Even from the BAW also you can do. So please do the practice, because there is a thing, there is a thing, because we are taking this training to understand, to learn things. After covering almost like 32 hours, 35 hours of training, maybe we covered only 30 hours till now. So even after covering so many hours, still there is a gap on the basic things that we covered. Okay. Map object people who are answering tw.local.employee location is equal to, again, you're initializing the map object. That is absolutely incorrect. There are people over here, I can tell you, out of 20, there are 10-15 people who are really doing well, but the rest of the 5, they still lack some practice. It's very easy. IBM BPM is not so complex, believe me. It's very, very easy. It's not that complex. If you practice every day at least for 1 hour, it will become easier for you. Okay, so please do the practice. Okay, so now this service will be able to trigger the process, right? So if I now try to trigger this service, let's see, service completed. Now I believe I should be able to see some instance over here. Refresh it. 258 is the instance, right? So we could be triggering. I triggered this instance. This is the instance ID 258. Wait, let me retry this. I don't like to see failed instance. So many failed instances were there. Okay. So here 258 is the one which I triggered just now. And what I was trying to say that time, yes, I can enhance this code. We saw this enhancement before also. Like say, this is an Ajax service and this service might be called by some external team. by some external application. So we need to provide them back with a response, right? If the call is successful, we will provide them with a message saying that the call is successful and this is the instance ID. If the call is not successful, then in that case, we will provide them with a message that the call is not successful. Okay, so those kind of enhancements you can always do. Just you need to, if you want to get the instance ID, just put a variable before. Okay, and later on, what you can do, you can put this variable to a BPM variable. Okay, you create one variable over here, say instance ID, and over there you can map this instance. By this you can get the instance ID in some BPM variable, and that you can pass it back as a response to the Java team, to the Java service. Okay, so this is one thing, right? So now we are good. What we are passing here, employee location. Now guys, what I will do, since we are going to call this service from the REST API, you cannot have a private variable. Okay, you should have always an input variable for this Ajax service. Okay, so I'll just copy this thing. I will delete this private variable. Instead I will just take it as an input variable. Okay, now we need to remember one more thing, that is, this is not only for REST API, this is also for uh, those external applications, whoever will be calling this Ajax service. So they have to call, or they have to pass the data in the form of JSON. Okay, this EMP location, they need to pass it as a JSON to us. And accordingly, Java service will get it and will use that data from the JSON to trigger the BPM process. Okay, very simple. Let's see how we can do it. So we'll go back to the REST API. Now see guys, I am not adding any default value over here. I am going to pass the value from where? I'm going to pass it from the REST API. Okay, using the JSON format. So I'll go back to my REST API. I have the start service API, and here in the service ID or name, exactly what I said you guys, I am going to use the process acronym at the rate Ajax service name. This is what this format I'm going to use. First, let me just verify a very small thing. Is it an Ajax service? Yes, it's an Ajax service. I will select the second, the last one. Allow calls from all users. Okay, let us see whether this will work. I'll just try to get the name in this format. What else? I need to get the acronym. MS01 is the acronym here, right? Mind Magic Sandbox. So MS01 at the rate, the name of the Ajax service, right? And then we have the parameters. And in parameter, like I said, you guys, we have to use the JSON format. Let me go inside and open the service. What is the variable name? The location. I'm going to copy this here. And how we can use it in a form of JSON. Simple, like this. Within double quotes, you put the name of the parameter followed by a colon and then followed by some location, say Bangalore. This is the JSON format. If you have more parameters, you can put comma. Again, you can put the parameter name. Again, you can put the value. Like this only your JSON format will go on. Okay. I will show you a JSON format of a complex object, so that in future, if you have to create a JSON for a complex object, you do not get confused. Okay. I will show you that also later on. So I'll copy this guys, and I'll go back to the REST API and I'll put it over here like this. Okay, snapshot ID is not required, it's not mandatory, but you guys know from where we can get the snapshot ID right now, right? We can get it from the current task for a current state. Sorry. All these things are not at all required. You can completely ignore it and you can use the execute call now. What I get here, 200, okay, which means the call is successful. I can now go to the inspector, and if I refresh, you see the latest instance is 258, which means 259 should be created if the call is successful. 259. Let me expand the data. Employee location Bangalore. Okay, everybody is clear how we did this? Guys, please pick up those who are still confused. I'm pretty sure if I ask 10 minutes later, there are people who will not be able to answer. So those who are not able to answer, who are not able to understand, please tell me now. I'll explain once again. Tarun, did you understand?
Rahul, can you repeat?
Yes, Rahul.
Yes. I will repeat once again. Not an issue. So first what I did, I created an Ajax service. Okay, I'll modify this service a bit also because I am not really happy with the response. I don't see any response, right? If I'm a Java team, if I'm someone from the Java team, if I'm calling the service, see, I'm not getting anything response over here. I'm not sure whether the call is successful or not. They will not call from the REST API, right? They will not be able to see this status. So I will be passing some response back to them. Okay. So what I did, guys, I first created an Ajax service, right? And in this Ajax service, I took an input variable. Why I took an input variable? Because this service will be called by some external application. And for us, since I am not good in Java, since I don't have a Java framework to show you guys, I don't have Eclipse, I am using REST API for testing purpose. That is how a developer does, a BPM developer. Okay. So whenever you are calling a BPM service or a BPM process from some external application, make sure that the Ajax service should have an input variable and not private variable. Okay, that is the reason I added this as an input variable, EMP location. Now in the diagram, I added one script, and in the script, I added this code. Very simple code. First, what I am doing here, I am initializing the map object. I'm instantiating the map object. Now, people who said tw.local.emp location is equal to new tw.object.map, guys, we need to understand that is incorrect. EMP location is not a map variable, it's a string variable. How can I initialize it as a map object? We cannot do it. Number one. Number two, always map object can be initialized only with a JavaScript parameter, a JavaScript variable. And how do we declare it? Using where input is equal to new tw.object.map. After you have initialized the input, what I need to do next? I need to pass or populate some value to this input parameter. That is what I'm doing in the second statement. Input.put emp location is the process variable where I am passing the value from the Ajax service variable. Right? Simple. Now I come to the third statement. tw.system.start process by name. I am triggering the process. So I have to pass the name of the process, right? Within double quotes. And along with that, I am also passing what data I want to populate from this Ajax service to the process. That is the input, which already has this data. Okay, guys, just a moment. Give me 1 minute. Just a moment. I'm back. So we understood these three statements. We are good. Now I will just going to add some response. And if you try to send something back to the external application, then you need to create output variables. Okay. So I created one parameter called response. I go back to my diagram here.
Of for that success or error of the instance. Okay.
Okay. What else we can do? We now know exception handling, right?
Rahul, can you explain that if instance means what is the meaning of that?
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah. I would have, sorry. I would have explained. Yeah, this means if instance has some value, if instance parameter is not null, is not empty, is not undefined, then in that case, which means I have some value, then only it will come inside, it will populate this response. Else, if it doesn't have any value, it will populate this response.
okay, then can we put like if instance equal to true or something like that?
No, why true? Because instance is not a Boolean parameter.
Okay.
Yes, definitely you can write here if instance not equal to undefined, and like this you can add on, but this is the easiest one. Okay, this also will work.
Okay. So if instance has a value, it gets triggered, else it doesn't.
First, this will be executed. If this call is not successful, if this call is not successful at all, then instance will not have any value. It will come to the else. It will populate this. If this call is a successful call, then obviously the first if will satisfy and it will populate workflow created successfully with the instance ID.
Okay, Rahul, got it.
Okay. Now we are already aware of how to implement exception handling. Now, if this entire script fails, right? If this entire script fails, how it can fail? I'll tell you. Very simple way. See, we are passing this location, right? Now this call generally fails. Input.put will fail if this employee location comes as null. Okay, that time this call will fail. If it fails, then in that case, I can add a script here. So I am just populating this response once again so that the external team can understand, okay, so we might not have passed the employee location. Now guys, this can be handled in many ways. This first statement, instead of writing it over here, I could have also written it over here right at the beginning before this var input and everything. First, what you can do, you can check, you can do a validation whether your employee location is null or not. If it is not null, then only you proceed with all these things, otherwise you will not. That is the best one actually, to be very honest. So what we can do, so simply let us try this also. If tw.local.employee location, just put like this, which means that you have some data inside this employee location, then you perform everything else, you once again populate this response. Okay. This is good, we are able to understand. Okay. So now let's trigger this from here. We see a response, okay, object. So possibly it is not mapping it correctly. Okay, wait. Where instance, and now let me add a parameter. Instance ID. Okay, sorry, my mistake. So basically, whenever you're trying to get the instance ID from the start process by name, make sure there is an ID at the end, dot ID. Then only it will give you the instance ID from this API call. It will create the instance, but still if you want to get the instance ID, that you can get it by putting dot ID at the end. Okay. So here, like I have put inst dot ID, and now variable, my BPM variable. And this I can now add it over here. Let's try now. Let me see whether this is working. Yeah, it is working. Now definitely I can go and I can use the caret function, you know, to remove this 2072. Whenever there is a dot, I will just remove the first part and just get the instance ID. That also you can do additionally. Okay, these are all the enhancements. Now let's see if I remove this employee location, say I pass it as null, what will happen? Workflow should not be created, right? And I should get some response. Employee location is null. Okay, so by doing this, you are actually trying to make the other team understand, the other service understand that, hey, you have passed something as null. That's the reason we did not go and create any workflow. Okay, so you see, if I go to the inspector now, if I click on refresh, you see all the instances were created successfully. Okay, we are good, guys. Any doubts?
Yes, Rahul, I'm good. Thank you.
No doubts, Raghu.
Okay. Tarun, everything is fine. We are good.
Yes, Rahul, fine. Yeah, good.
Can
Bharat,
you just go to the
Mhm.
coding part once again,
Mhm.
Raghu?
Yes.
I need to see it once, nothing.
Yeah, sure. So usually, in case you see this brackets, this indentation, we call this as indentation, right? Now, usually when I used to work initially in Java in my college days, when I started learning programming, Generally, our indentation we used to do in this way. Actually, very useful to understand. So this way it becomes easier for you guys to understand, and in this way also you can write. Mohit, all good?
Rahul,
Yeah.
you can explain last first if and last else, Rahul. That I am not understanding.
This one.
Yes, Rahul.
So here what we have done, if you see the first if, it is actually connected with this one, if else. Okay. So what I'm checking first, I'm checking if employee location is having some value. This means, this statement means if employee location has a value, it is not null, it is not undefined, it is not blank, then in that case I'm executing whatever is written over here. Okay. In case if employee
Okay,
location
Rahul.
is null, then I will move inside the else statement and I will add this statement for this parameter, that employee location is null.
Null. Okay, okay.
Okay. Okay. Okay, then we are still left with a few more, okay, which I'm going to show you tomorrow, especially from the task API. There are few things which we need to know, very simple things like assign task to user, assign task to me, get data. I can put the task ID here, and every task will have some parameter, right? So I can just pass on the parameter over here and I can get the data for those parameters. Say for example, employee location. Employee location is a parameter which will be used in the employee task. Maybe it will be used in the manager task also. So you just need to put the task ID of the employee task and you just put the field employee location. If I click on execute call, it will give me the value for that parameter. Okay. Like this, there are very simple things which we will discuss tomorrow and we'll close the REST API. Okay. And tomorrow itself, we don't have time today. I will share the use case by EOD. So tomorrow we'll discuss on the use case. It has already been prepared. I will just share it with you guys. So tomorrow we will discuss. Okay. And tomorrow we are also going to start task assignment, like how to create a team. Okay, how I can add the users in the team. So initially, if you guys remember, there were some issues from my end, from the server end. I was not able to create users, right? But somehow I could able to create users, 4 or 5 users I was able to create. So tomorrow, all the task assignment techniques, routing techniques, all these things will start. Okay.
Rahul, JSON parameter for business object.
JSON parameter for business object. Can I show it tomorrow?
Okay.
Let me show it now only. The problem. Say employee information, right?
Rahul, voice is a bit low.
Bit low.
Yeah, now it's fine.
Why it became yellow. So employee location is a business object for our case. So if I have to convert this into a JSON, then how can I convert? It's simple. Type of leave is again a list, right? So what we have in type of leave, we have just a moment.
Rahul, is there any general syntax for this?
Syntax as in? Yes, syntax is there. Yes. Okay. I'll leave it over here. Let me try to convert this into JSON with, still it will, this is a lateral format. It's in like a single line. I wanted to put it in JSON. So there are a lot of JSON. You will see if you go online, there are some websites where you will see you can put this in the form of JSON over there. It will show you in a proper format. Generally, it will look like this. Okay.
So this is the format which is used by when it comes to other services. It comes in JSON.
So let me explain. Yeah, let me explain here. First is I'm putting the name of the business object, right? Employee information. Now say employee information right now has 3 parameters. The first parameter, so how I'm starting, again, I'm putting this curly braces. EMP ID, say it's a string variable. So I'm putting this in double quotes. If it was an integer, I could have removed this thing. This thing I believe you guys are aware. If it was a Boolean parameter, then I could have put here true or false. Then comes employee name. It is a string. So I put it in double quotes, Rahul. Type of leave was a list. And since it is a list, always need to start with this bracket. Okay. And then inside, I'm just putting the items which I want to populate for type of leave. And then what we are doing, we are closing this. Which one we are closing? We are closing first the employee information, whatever I have. And then right at the end, I'm closing this business object. Okay. This way you have to write. The best place to understand JSON, you can go to W3 schools. There you will have the examples. They also have their own consoles. You can try it out there. Okay, W3 schools is the best one where you can actually try to understand JSON, XML, all these things. Okay, but this is the way. You will need a lot of JSON format, guys, if you're working in headless projects. In internal BPM project, complete end-to-end BPM project JSON format, you might not require. but headless projects definitely you have to play with XML and JSON every day nearly. So
Yes,
you need to
Rahul.
know how the JSON can be created. Okay, we are good.
Yes, Rahul.
Yes, Rahul.
Yes, Rahul.
Yes, Rahul.
Yes, Rahul.
Yes,
Yes,
Rahul.
Rahul.
Yes, Rahul.
Yes, Rahul.
Okay, guys, let me know if you have any questions, any doubts on any of the sessions we have done till now. We can discuss.
Rahul, how can we import the process, Rahul, from old trial version to new trial version?
Old trial version to new trial. So the same way I showed you how to export a snapshot.
Yes, Rahul. But I have tried yesterday, but it not work.
Yes, Rahul. In the trial version, we can't import
Import, Rahul. Format the same
snapshot.
issue.
It's restricted. It's restricted for us as a trial.
It asking to access, go through your administrator.
Okay. So maybe you have to be a part of admin team. Okay. Can someone share their screen if BW is open for anyone?
Yes, Rahul.
One thing. I'll stop my sharing. If you're done, then I will stop my sharing. You, some of you, one of you can share your screen.